Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with bacon-wrapped cranberry walnut pork. That's right, my favorite kind of recipes to share are the ones that look super complicated and look like they take a lot of time and effort to do, when they are actually relatively quick and easy to put together. And by the way, how simple this is going to be our secret. Okay, when our guest asks, was that as hard to make as it looks? We'll say yes, it was. But you know what? You are worth it. Or something to that effect. And to get started here, what we're going to need first is one fully trimmed pork tenderloin, which is generally how they're sold these days. But once you unwrap yours, if you see some of that silvery tough membrane still attached, go ahead and trim it off. And then what we're going to do here is sort of roll it over on its side, because we're going to need to butterfly this. And what that means is cut straight down the middle, but not all the way through. Okay, we only want to go like 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through. Okay, so take your time and please be careful, because what'll happen if you do cut all the way through is that you'll have to stop and make another recipe. But assuming that your butterflying went perfectly, what we'll do next is sandwich that between a couple pieces of plastic wrap, and then using a meat pounder or some other flat, heavy object, we will pound this out to approximately 1/4 inch thick. Okay, maybe slightly under, but we don't want to go too thin, because once we roll this, we do want to maintain a certain thickness of meat. And then our post-pounding production will involve seasoning this very generously with kosher salt, as well as some freshly ground black pepper. And then, in a little bit of a plot twist, we are going to spread over a little bit of Dijon mustard. All right, not very much, only like a teaspoon or two. And we will spread that over until we have a nice thin coating. And then, once our meat's been mustarded, we're going to scatter over a little bit of freshly chopped pork-friendly herbs, which in my case are going to be some minced rosemary, as well as some thinly sliced sage leaves. And then once applied, we can use our spoon to kind of distribute those evenly, or at least semi-evenly. All right, just get it close. That's all we ever ask. And then next up, we're going to do a very, very light sprinkling of breadcrumbs. Since whenever you roast something like this, you're going to create juices, which can and will leak out. But by doing a little bit of breadcrumb inside, those will actually get absorbed and we can eat them. So we will do a little dusting of breadcrumbs, at which point we can scatter over as much chopped walnut and dried cranberries we want. And I probably should have measured those, but I didn't. But luckily, thanks to the magic of video, you can see how much I'm putting on. Oh, and in case you're keeping score at home, those walnuts were toasted lightly first, which always brings out a little more flavor. But anyway, we will apply those over the top. And of course, any rogue pieces that tried to escape will be placed back on. At which point we'll fold either end in about an inch or so, and then proceed to roll this up as tightly and neatly as we can. And please note, I like to leave about an inch, unfruited and nutted, on the edge we're going to roll towards, just so we're able to complete this roll with a fairly clean seam at the bottom. And that's it. Once we've shaped that into as uniform a tube as we can, we will simply wrap this up and transfer it in the fridge for at least an hour. Okay, because cold meat is always easier to work with. Plus, that will give our meat a little bit of time to start absorbing those flavors. So I popped mine in the fridge for about 60 minutes, at which point I pulled it out and transferred it onto this foil lined pan. And then even though the inside was fairly well seasoned, we still do want to lightly season the outside, which I did with a blend of kosher salt, freshly ground black pepper, and cayenne. All right, so not too much, just a light sprinkling. And then once that's been seasoned, we will go ahead and wrap it in bacon. And not just any bacon, cheap bacon. And why I want you to use cheap bacon is that it tends to be the thinnest sliced bacon, which is going to work a lot better here, since this only cooks for about 25 minutes to a half hour, which is really not enough time to properly cook thick sliced bacon. And I know, sure, you can partially cook the bacon and then wrap this, but I always find that a lot harder to work with. So like I said, just try to find the thinnest sliced bacon you can. And we will go ahead and wrap the length, trying our best to keep the bacon to a single layer, with somehow the ends ending up underneath. All right, if you don't have enough bacon to go all the way over, just leave it underneath, and then start the next piece. That way the bacon along the top will render out and brown evenly. And by the way, if you're not into the smokiness, you can use pancetta for this, or even a few slices of prosciutto if you want. All right, that's up to you. I mean, you are, after all, the Bjork of your mummified pork. And that's it. Once our pork is bacon wrapped, it is ready to transfer into the center of a 450-degree oven for about 25 minutes or so, or until we hit an internal temp of at least 145. And then if we want, while that is roasting, we can go ahead and make a simple sauce to serve alongside. As in really simple. since all we're going to do is take a splash of white wine, plus a little bit of balsamic vinegar, or the vinegar of your choice, as well as 1 spoon of Dijon. And what we'll do is whisk that together over medium heat, and simply cook it, keeping a close eye on it, until it reduces by about half. And yes, of course we can roast our pork in a pan, and then just make the sauce while it's resting, which works fine if you're just doing this for a few people, or it's not a fancy holiday meal. But if you're going to be busy and or stressed, making the sauce while your pork roasts and having it ready is a lot easier. And then all we need to do to finish this, once it reduces by about half, is turn off the heat and toss in a couple pieces of cold butter, along with a little pinch of salt and pepper. And as soon as those get stirred in and emulsified, our sauce is done. And for a bigger pan, the whisk would be fine here. But for a small pan like this, it's probably better just to shake and swirl. And you'll see after doing that for just about 30 seconds to a minute, that butter will disappear, and you will be left with a shiny, absolutely gorgeous looking sauce. Which of course will taste for seasoning, but remember it's going to go under that beautifully seasoned pork loin. So don't do too much. And speaking of pork loin, by now it should be cooked, and looking pretty hot and tempting, which people used to refer to as fat, until people like me started using the term, and then they stopped. But anyway, that's looking amazing. And I'd love to slice right in, but we should probably wait for at least 5 minutes to give that a little bit of a rest. At which point then it's okay to slice in, which I like to do at a little bit of an angle, which is really going to show off our beautiful spiral pattern inside. And even though it might have looked like we had a little too much stuffing when we rolled this, as you can see, once baked, it's going to be the perfect amount of stuffing to the amount of meat. And I'm sorry, but I had to pull off and try that little piece of bacon, which then inspired me to cut off the end piece and eat that, which truly was incredible. But anyway, we'll cut a few nice thick slices and serve that over our sauce. Oh, and a little tip for you young recipe video producers. Try not to block the shot with your large hairy hand. That is not a great look. Although once properly arranged, this is a great look. And like I said in the intro, looks like it's really complicated and hard to make. And then above and beyond its stunning appearance, this really is an incredibly delicious combination of flavors. Right, we have that slightly smoky richness of the bacon with that lightly herb-scented pork. And then when you add in that little bit of tanginess from the mustard, plus the earthiness of our walnuts, which are all contrasted perfectly with those little sweet and sour nuggets of cranberry. When you put all that together, you're talking about something very special indeed. I mean, the only downside here is how long and hard and difficult and complicated this is to make. Okay, that's our story and we're sticking to it. But anyway, whether you admit this was simple and easy to make or not, I really do hope you give it a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.